She had a gift that could change everything, a palate so perfect. She could hear the harmony in food, but her father saw it as worthless. One torn-up application, one midnight escape, one final dish that would either destroy her family or save it. Have you ever had to choose between your parents' dreams for you and your own passion? When is it time to stop living someone else's version of success? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Now let's begin our story. Seoul's winter night pressed down heavy. The apartment where Soo-hyun lived, she was 28, was just an ordinary place in Gangnam, maybe 1,000 square feet. Outside noise didn't stand a chance in there. Everything was dead quiet. But in that quiet, you could feel something pulled tight, like a wire about to snap. Dinner was laid out on the table. Heavy white porcelain plates, silverware lined up just so. Everything perfect. Everything in its place, just like her life was supposed to be. Soo-hyun graduated from one of those schools. Everyone's heard of top-tier English literature program. The kind of finish line everybody nods at and says, "Good job." But instead of chasing some corporate gig, she went a different way. Food stylist, digital content creator, the kind of path her father, Young-ho, 60 years old, never signed off on. Not once. He didn't say a word through dinner. Not one. That silence sat on her chest like a stone. For Soo-hyun, cooking wasn't about what you saw or smelled. It was what you heard. She could catch the sounds ingredients made when they came together. The salad dressing on tonight's plate? It wasn't mixed right. The olive oil had this smooth, low hum, but the lemon juice cut through sharp and high, just slightly off. She knew without even getting close. Her palate wasn't just good. It was absolute. She could hear balance, or the lack of it. Inside, she was a mess of contradictions. She wanted to turn this gift into something real, a business. Her content wasn't just recipes. She wanted to make people hear what ingredients were saying. It was art. But to her father, it was just noise. Young-ho spent 35 years in finance. His philosophy was simple: numbers don't lie. He measured everything in ROI, return on investment. The time and money he poured into his daughter, that was supposed to cash out as a Wall Street-level salary. To him, her creativity was just another unstable venture with no real yield. He didn't try to understand her passion. He figured he didn't need to. On the surface, Soo-hyun seemed calm, polite, but underneath, a furnace. She didn't do compromise. 4 years back, she walked out on a finance internship. Everyone would have killed for and took off to France. Spent 6 months under a Michelin-starred chef. The guy told her she had a palate that belonged in God's domain. But her father wouldn't even let her put it on her resume. That's just proof you wasted time. His words always landed cold. Her life philosophy was simple: pursue true harmony. Not just in food. She wanted to strip away the fake sounds, the unnecessary noise, and find the core beauty in everything. The bubbles in finance, the fake smiles that was all dissonance to her. She wanted to show the world real value through her talent. She wanted to lead the creator economy, not follow it. Her mother, Mi Kyung, sat quiet through the tension. She didn't speak, just slid a little more of Soo-hyun's favorite side dish onto her plate. It was a quiet show of support, a small act of rebellion against her husband. Soo-hyun felt it, but that kind of gentle backing couldn't crack her father's iron certainty. Soo-hyun. Young-ho finally broke the silence. His voice was low, firm. Next week's the final interview. You need to give it everything. That little hobby of yours? You can think about it after. He made it clear her dream was a hobby. Nothing more. She kept her head down, jaw tight. After dinner, he disappeared into his study. The door closed with a heavy thud. Soo-hyun went back to her room. 2 documents sat on her desk. One was the final interview packet for a global consulting firm, her father's expectation, printed and waiting. The other was her dream, the application for the Asian Rising Chef Challenge, ARCC. The deadline was the day right after her interview. She reached out and touched the ARCC form. The line about submitting a video, explaining your own original recipe, made her heart race. She opened the mini fridge in her room. The ingredients for the japchae she'd start tomorrow night without her father, knowing were fresh and practically humming. The earthy scent of carrots, the firm texture of onions. She picked up the interview packet. The cold paper made her decision feel even more solid. She'd use this paper, this expectation, as her final mask to end the dissonance. Her father kept forcing on her. She'd go to the interview. Sure, but that was just procedure. A way to calm him down. Her real target was already locked in. Quietly, she pulled out her cooking tools. This was her time now, the calm before the storm. And her father had no idea. Soo Hyun's double life kicked off. Nighttime was her only escape. 1 in the morning, when everyone else was out cold, she'd slip into the kitchen, one lamp lighting the way. Quiet as she could, she'd pull out her tools. The kitchen became her secret lab, her studio where dreams got built. First thing, every time check that her father's study light was off. That became the ritual. Walking to the kitchen, she'd move careful, scared the floorboards might creak, so she'd walk on her toes. She had to prep her submission video for the Asian Rising Chef. Challenge ARCC the preliminary round. The theme was modern interpretation of tradition. She picked japchae, a Korean royal court dish. The colors, the intricate balance, it was the perfect menu to show what she could do. She started prepping ingredients. Her knife work was fast, precise. Every time she sliced through spinach stems, there was this faint, grassy sound. She'd listen and figure out how fresh it was, the state of the fibers. She'd cut away anything that didn't belong, only kept the parts that sounded perfect. But her daytime, that was a whole different world. Final interview prep for S Consulting, this massive firm, was crushing her. Every morning, her father handed her files packed with interview scenarios. Today, prepare a 10-minute presentation on restructuring the business portfolio for a company. With a 500 billion won market cap, he talked like he was giving work orders. Soo Hyun forced herself to read business news, memorize strategy jargon. Her head was full of thoughts about the perfect soy sauce ratio for japchae, the depth of shiitake mushroom flavor. But on the outside, she wore the mask of a stone-cold businesswoman. That mask kept getting heavier. Her mother, Mi-kyung, had a hunch about the double life. She pretended not to hear the faint sound of the knife in the kitchen at night. The next morning, after Soo Hyun crashed, her mother would tidy up. She'd stare at the traces of glass noodles in the sink, the faint soy sauce stain on the counter. Then she'd tuck a bottle of expensive perilla, oil Soo Hyun's favorite way in the back of the fridge. Her mother's support happened in silence. She couldn't pick sides between her husband and her daughter. She understood her husband's obsession with stability, but she was terrified her daughter's fire would burn out. A week passed. Soo Hyun was 2 days out from the ARCC submission deadline. She checked the seasoning on her japchae one last time. Every ingredient mixed in perfect proportion. The chewiness of the noodles laid down this thick base note. The crunch of the vegetables hit the high notes. The deep flavor of the soy sauce held it all together. She felt this rush of joy. This was her art. That same afternoon, her father explained the profitability analysis section of the final report. She'd present at the interview. The creator economy you keep talking about? That's not sustainable growth. Look at this report. This is the contract for where you should be using your talent. Young-ho looked her straight in the eye when he said it, not a shred of doubt in his voice. Soo Hyun looked away from his intense gaze. Her father's logic was airtight, and she didn't have the proof of real-world success yet to argue back. Day of the final interview at S Consulting, Soo Hyun dressed perfectly. Dark gray suit, hair pulled back neat. She looked like the perfect product her father's expectations had built. The interview was in one of Seoul's skyscrapers. The city stretched out below the window, a monument to her father's success. The interviewer asked in this calm voice, "Ms. Kim Soo-hyun, what are your thoughts on risk, management, and return on investment for this project?" Soo-hyun recited the answers she'd memorized, but her words didn't land. Instead of the interviewer's voice, all she could hear was the sound of carrots frying from last night in the kitchen. They'd cooked too long, gone soft and soggy. The balance is off. Should have added a little more sugar to push the caramelization. For a second, she forgot she was in an interview room. Thought she was standing in a kitchen. Her eyes went unsteady. The interviewer caught how her gaze drifted into empty space. She couldn't answer the sharp follow-up questions properly. Her mask was starting to slip. The interview ended in silence and awkwardness. Soo Hyun walked out and headed down into the subway. Her body felt like dead weight. She'd failed. Totally bombed it. Now she was drowning in anxiety about not meeting her father's expectations, guilt about lying for her own dream. When she got home late that night, her mother was sitting on the living room couch, waiting. Her face looked worn out. How did the interview go? The question came out so quiet. Soo Hyun kept her head down. "I'm sorry, Mom. It didn't go well." Her mother was silent for a moment. Then she forced a smile. "It's okay. There'll be another chance. Don't beat yourself up too much. The words were meant to comfort, but the disappointment hiding underneath hit Soo-hyun like another weight. In this house, the word stability was absolute pressure on everyone. Soo-hyun went to her room and opened her laptop. The ARCC application was on the screen. Failing the interview left her no other choice. Now she had to prove her own path, not her father's. Her shoulders felt heavy, but somewhere deep inside, something hot was rising. This wasn't some shaky hobby anymore. She reached out and hit enter. ARCC preliminary round application submitted. She looked out the window. The night sky was deep navy blue. She made up her mind she'd prove her cooking wasn't just some recipe. She'd create overwhelming value that could stand up to her father's cold ROI logic. If her japchae video passed the preliminaries, all this conflict would hit a breaking point. Soo-hyun clenched her fists. There was nowhere left to retreat. When Soo-hyun hit that button to enter the Asian Rising Chef Challenge ARCC preliminaries, it was late at night. That decision brought relief and panic at the same time. Relief that she didn't have to keep bouncing between two worlds, lying to herself anymore. She spent days editing her submission video, captured the whole process of making japchae like it was some kind of art performance. The sound of onions releasing their sweetness as they cooked. The deep resonance when soy sauce soaked. She laid it all out carefully with subtitles. This was proof of the value she was trying to show. Everything blew up on a Wednesday afternoon. The rejection email from S Consulting popped up on her father's monitor. Those bland sentences. Despite your impressive qualifications, we found your profile didn't quite align with our organization's current needs were enough to crack the massive wall of her father Young-ho's expectations. Soo-hyun tried to hide the email, but he'd already seen it on her laptop. After work, Young-ho did something unusual, sat down on the living room couch without even taking off his coat. His expression wasn't angry. It was closer to deep resignation. His eyes stared into nothing. In Korean culture, when a child veers off the stable path, it feels like they're rejecting everything the parent stands for, their whole way of life. Why'd you bomb the interview? Is that really all you're capable of? His voice was quiet, but the weight of disappointment crushed her shoulders. Soo-hyun gathered her courage and faced him head-on. I didn't bomb it. I just didn't want that path. You didn't want it? Was living a life you didn't want really that hard for you? You need to think about the time. You invested, the value of the education you got. His voice started rising. The conflict exploded. Young-ho shot up from his seat. Can your art, your little hobby, support this family? No ROI means no future. He swept his hand across her workspace, knocking her food content miniature samples and small camera onto the floor. Broken glass and food models scattered everywhere. Soo-hyun held back tears. Tears were a weakness in this fight. You always just calculate money and stability. Why don't you calculate the value I can create? Value? Value is profitability. Prove it to me. Show me a business model that'll bring in high income right now. In his rage, Young-ho banned her from the kitchen. You're not touching those cooking tools in front of me ever again. Soo-hyun fled to her room, shaken. Home felt like a prison now. She felt this intense urge to escape this suffocating environment. That's when an official email arrived from ARCC headquarters. She'd passed the preliminaries. Her japchae video had made a strong impression on the judges. Instead of joy, she felt this overwhelming sense of responsibility. Now she had a shot at real proof that could silence her father's criticism. Making it to the finals brought new challenges. The preliminaries were digital videos, but the finals? A live demonstration in 48 hours. Her absolute palate was so refined. It was hard to find common ground with mainstream tastes. The subtle harmony she thought was perfect sometimes came across as excessive or unfamiliar to judges. Bridging that gap was urgent. Soo-hyun wrestled with the problem. Behind her mother's back, she reached out to Chef Kang Min-seok, a Korean food expert and culinary columnist she'd met during her time studying in France. He was the only outsider who knew about her absolute palate. Chef Kang gave her advice. Your talent's way ahead of its time, Soo-hyun. If you want to convince the masses, you have to come from the deepest roots. And that's ultimately about the depth of tradition. Soo-hyun opened up about the conflict with her father, about how he kept forcing this ROI mentality on her. Chef Kang went quiet for a moment, let out a deep sigh. Then he told her something she could hardly believe. Young-ho, Kim Young-ho, your father was pretty famous in this world when he was young. 30 years ago, he spent 5 whole years in traditional kitchens. determined to become the best Korean master chef. He had this natural palate, really rare talent. Soo-hyun was stunned. Her father's younger days? A master chef? Her father, who'd spent his whole life shouting about numbers and finance, he had that kind of past? Chef Kang continued. Eventually, your grandfather pushed back hard and he gave it up. What he said back then was, dreams without value starve your family. I think Young-ho sees his own failure reflected in you. That was the turning point. Her father's anger wasn't just conservatism. It was deep-hand, that Korean concept of unresolved grief over his crushed dream, and a twisted protective instinct toward his daughter. Soo-hyun had this profound realization. Her father's ROI logic was the weight of the dream. He'd given up, something he'd carried his whole life. She decided now that her ARCC challenge wasn't just about proving her dream. It was an attempt to free her father's suppressed self. Her cooking had to carry harmony between two generations now. She completely overhauled her finals recipe. To fit the theme of roots and modernity, she tried to capture the wisdom of her father's generation hidden in japshi. A few days later, while Soo-hyun was out, briefly, Young-ho quietly entered his daughter's room. He found the finals notification from ARCC on her desk. His eyes locked onto the words, "Finals Live Demonstration." The muscles in his face twitched like he was having a spasm. When Soo-hyun came down to the kitchen, it was trashed. Her cooking tools were thrown all over the sink. On the table lay the torn-up ARCC finals notification. Young-ho stood in the living room. His eyes were bloodshot. "So you went ahead and did it anyway." His voice was cruelly calm. "You didn't listen to me. Did whatever you wanted. Get out of this house. Now." Soo-hyun picked up the torn paper. She wasn't crying anymore. Instead of anger, deep compassion for her father settled in her chest. But there was no backing down now. She looked at her father with determined eyes. "Fine, I'll leave. But I'm going to prove my value." "The value you gave up on?" Soo-hyun grabbed only her laptop and her most treasured knife, set and walked out the door. Walking down the empty apartment hallway, she moved toward the ARCC Live Finals happening in 48 hours. Ahead of her was the last and biggest stage, the one where she had to earn her family's recognition. The dramatic conflict was about to peak. Soo-hyun left home at 3 in the morning. The torn pieces of that ARCC Finals notification were lodged in her chest like sharp fragments. Seoul's streets were damp, and the only sound was her suitcase, wheels rolling down the empty apartment hallway. She was heading toward her final stage, the one where she had to prove her worth in the cruel silence her father left behind. Her only weapons? A laptop, a knife set, and the secret information Chef Kang Min-seok had given her about her father's Han, that deep, unresolved grief. Soo-hyun found temporary shelter in a rundown inn. Near the ARCC Live demonstration venue, sleep was a luxury. She checked over her final recipe in a shared kitchen space tucked in the corner of the inn. The theme she'd chosen was the harmony of two generations. She'd take the elegant foundation of traditional royal court, japchae, and layer it with the modern balance of sound her absolute palate could find. 5 in the morning, a message came from her mother, Mi Kyung. Just 2 lines. "Dress warm. You've got this." And 1 photo. In the old black and white picture, a young Kim Young-ho wore a worn chef's coat instead of a business suit, smiling bright. He stood in front of a photo studio, knife in hand. Soo-hyun stared at it. Her father's eyes weren't those of a cold finance guy. They were full of pure passion. The compassion in her chest turned into fierce determination. She wasn't getting revenge on her father now. She was finishing the dream he'd abandoned. Finally, the ARCC Finals Live demonstration. The stage was quiet and bright. Soo-hyun stood in front of the station. Her eyes didn't waver. Judges from different countries surrounded her, watching her every move with sharp gazes. Her cooking began. She mixed, sautéed, seasoned, listening to the sound each ingredient made. The moment Soo-hyun lifted the soy sauce bottle, the camera caught her wrist muscles and her focused eyes. Her absolute palate was distinguishing the subtle salinity of the soy sauce. By sound, a bass tone. When she poured it in, the stir-fried noodles created this perfect resonance. The demonstration was about halfway through, when the back of the stage got noisy. A man in a black coat pushed past security guards and burst toward center stage. Kim Young-ho, her father. His face was twisted with sweat and rage. "Stop this right now!" Young-ho's voice shattered the silence in the venue. Soo-hyun turned off the burner. Every eye in the room locked onto them. Her father's eyes were bloodshot, his hands shaking violently. "You're ignoring me to the very end. Do you even know what you're doing? This is an insult to me." Her father lunged toward her workstation. Soo-hyun turned to protect the plate. Her father reached for the delicately plated japchae harmony dish. She was about to present for her final demonstration. His rough hand was about to touch the edge of the plate. When Soo-hyun took a breath, "Don't destroy your dream too." Soo-hyun's cry wasn't a scream. It was low and firm. Young-ho's hand froze in midair. His gaze didn't look at Soo-hyun. It pierced through to somewhere deep inside her eyes. "I'm going to finish the master craftsman's dream you gave up 30 years ago. When Grandpa said dreams without value starve your family, how much did that hurt you, Dad? I won't repeat your failure. My ROI is the real value I create with my own hands." Soo-hyun's words cut through her father's tightly sealed interior. Shock drained all the strength from his body. Before his eyes flashed images from 30 years ago, the young man who had to put down his knife. He wasn't looking at his daughter's face. He was looking at himself in a mirror. His attempt to destroy his daughter's dream was revealed as a cruel struggle to bury his own past forever. Young-ho collapsed right there on stage. He didn't grab Soo-hyun's plate. He grabbed his own head. The audience and judges held their breath. This wasn't just a cooking competition. It was a family drama about deep wounds and reconciliation. Soo-hyun didn't waver. After seeing her father break down, she turned the burner back on and started her final work. In the center of the plate, she dropped a single drop of traditional soy sauce deep in color, as if it held her father's hand. This was the traditional technique Chef Kang had told her about, the one that captured the heavy taste of home. That had been young Kim Young-ho's signature. Soo-hyun got 5 extra minutes and submitted her plate to the judges. Her dish was perfect. The delicate harmony her absolute palate had found, and the heavy traditional flavor that held her father's dream came together. The theme of the harmony of 2 generations was clearly realized. The judges tasted Soo-hyun's japchae in silence, their expressions filled with amazement and emotion. The French judge in particular stood up and applauded. "This is cooking that transcends technique. This is soul food. I don't just hear the ingredients. I hear the family." After the competition ended, right before the results were announced, Young-ho was still crouched in the corner of the stage. Instead of feeling victorious, Soo-hyun felt deep sorrow. She paused at center stage. Then, leaving the judges' cheers behind her, she walked over to her father. Soo-hyun cut the most beautiful part from her dish and held it out to her father. Carefully, she placed a forkful of her japchae in his tear-soaked hand. "You know this taste, don't you, Dad? If you hadn't given up, you would have been standing here today." Soo-hyun's voice trembled, but it was strong. Young-ho put the japchae in his mouth, the deep, heavy taste of home he'd forgotten for 30 years. It was the sound of his real value, the one he'd buried when he gave up his dream. He closed his eyes. Warm tears rolled down his cheeks. His hardened emotions finally exploded. Soo-hyun placed her hand on her father's shoulder. She'd earned his acknowledgement that your dream has value. This meant more than just winning the competition. In the next chapter, with the final results, this family's new life would begin. When the venue started breathing again, Soo-hyun and Kim Young-ho stood in an empty hallway backstage. Her father still had his eyes closed. Like the aftertaste of the japchae she'd given him was still in his mouth. After 30 years of suppressed emotions, finally burst out, his face showed extreme exhaustion mixed with an unfamiliar sense of peace. A moment later, loud applause erupted from the stage, and the host's voice rang out. The final winner of the Asian Rising Chef Challenge is, representing South Korea, Chef Kim Soo-hyun. Soo-hyun closed her eyes. The victory itself mattered less than her father, standing next to her in that moment. When she turned to head back on stage, with her winning dish, Young-ho spoke for the first time. His voice was hoarse, but low and genuine. "Soo-hyun." He called his daughter's name with complete emotion. "In that japchae you made, I saw myself from 30 years ago." Soo-hyun looked at her father without saying anything. Her father took a deep breath. "I was wrong. What you should have given up wasn't your talent, it was my failure. I put too much weight on you." His eyes cleared, but deep regret still lingered. He didn't hug his daughter. He just communicated with his eyes that he was putting down his authority as a father. A few days later, when Soo-hyun came home, she was met with a changed landscape. The kitchen became her space again. Before leaving for work at dawn, her father, Kim, Young-ho left a new note on her workstation instead of that old photo of him in chef's whites. The note read, "Analysis of appropriate seed funding for initial launch and break-even point simulation summary. Review and report back." He didn't force or suppress her dream anymore. Instead, he started using his expertise, that ROI, logic, as a tool to make his daughter's dream succeed. Her father still calculated financial value, but the critical change was that the source of that value had shifted to his daughter's passion. Her mother, Mi Kyung, handed Soo-hyun an old photo and said, "Your father kept that picture hidden in the deepest corner of his study for 30 years. Now that you've brought it out, this house can finally breathe." Her mother's smile was relaxed now. The family conflict was resolved. Their own new harmony had begun. Soo-hyun used the ARCC prize money and investment offers to launch her Korean food content, studio and pop-up restaurant brand, Taste Harmony. Her absolute palate wasn't just a cooking skill anymore. It became an artistic connection that found people's hidden memories and emotions. A year after launching, her pop-up restaurant was always packed. Soo-hyun worked her knife in the kitchen, happy. What she heard wasn't the anxious sound of off-balance seasoning anymore. It was the sound of warm resonance gently connecting people. What is success? A high salary someone else sets for you? A stable position? No. Soo-hyun realized something. True value is connecting deeply with the world through what you do best, and having the people you love recognize that value. What melted her father's hardened heart wasn't high profitability. It was one forkful of japchae, carrying sincerity that leapt across 30 years. We all carry other people's expectations, but when we set that burden down and find our own melody, that's when the world gives us its most beautiful harmony. Soo-hyun stood by the kitchen window in warm sunlight and smiled. Her life was now perfectly cooked with her own recipe, reaching its most delicious moment.